It's time!
Get up, let me begin. This is TWSN. You ain't heard about us yet, well you better know now, because it's the place that it all goes down on.
Welcome back to another episode of Strikes and Submissions, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Dorian Wright, here along with Michael Daly, my co-host. Mike, how we feeling today?
Feeling great, man. We got a good show on hand, a lot to talk about, of course.
Yes, sir. And first and foremost, make sure we drop a like on the video, subscribe to the TWSN YouTube page, as well as our Instagram and Twitter platforms. And we got some MMA news to kick off this week. Obviously, Bellator 273 is coming up this weekend. You got Ryan Bader defending his belt in a unification bout against Valentin Moldavsky. And straight from the back, Mike, who you got in this fight?
First and foremost, Dorian, it's good to have Bellator back because if I'm not mistaken, the last Bellator card was Horiguchi Pettis, and that was outstanding. I think that was the last one. So if that was, what a great way to start the new year. I have Valentin Moldavsky coming away, getting the unified heavyweight title. I have not been impressed with Ryan Bader lately. You can say Ryan Bader dropped down in weight. His true weight is heavyweight. If you were to say that, I would agree with you. But I think it's a recipe for disaster when you start fluctuating in weight, you go down, and you lose to Corey Anderson. And then now you're coming back up to fight the interim heavyweight champ who can strike, who can grapple, and has momentum coming off of his win over Tim Johnson back in June. I don't see how Ryan Bader gets this done. I think Valentin Moldavsky is going to get a unanimous decision victory.
That's a solid pick, Mike. I agree with you. I do think Moldavsky's going to get it done, but for different reasons. I think Ryan Bader at this point in his career, he's saying that he wants to focus on heavyweight because, like I said, 205 career hasn't been the best as of late. But I just think it's past his time. I think this is the change of the guard, if you would say, for the heavyweight division in Bellator. I think that Ryan Bader is one of the older guys in the promotion, obviously. And I just think it's time for him to get passed up. As you said, he's at a disadvantage striking, I believe. The grappling, I don't know. I got to see a bit more. Obviously, we've seen Bader grapple against higher level opponents, so it's hard to see. But Moldavsky is going to take you down, can beat you up, does everything well. I don't see a way of Ryan Bader winning, but I don't think he gets a finish by any chance. I think this will be a close fight, probably a unanimous decision, 3-2 for Moldavsky.
I can see that. I can see it being kind of close, but I think you'll agree with me on what I'm about to say. Ryan Bader has been a great champion for Bellator, a great representative for that promotion. However, I don't think we have seen Ryan Bader at his best since before he left the UFC. I'm talking 2014, 2015 Ryan Bader, right before he left for Bellator. Since then, I hate to say it, I think he's kind of been a shell of himself because he suffered losses in a B-tier promotion. That's no offense to Bellator. You know how much I love Bellator, and we rave about Bellator on this show. So it's not like we're disrespecting Bellator, but also you couldn't make it in the A-League, so then you went down to the B-League, and you're kind of fizzling out. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. He's getting older, and I think the cracks are really starting to show right now, Dorian.
So I agree with the majority of what you're saying. I'm not going to say he couldn't make it in the UFC. If you
not as a champion, no, not as a champion though.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there's a ton of guys who are in the UFC who we love who aren't champions. So I don't want to say he couldn't cut his teeth in the A-League, but I see what you're saying with that, and I agree with that. I do think I don't know if he's been a shell of himself since he's been in Bellator, but I do think he's past his physical prime as well as his athletic prime. And let's just be real. Fighting is a young man's game. He's, 38, about to turn 39 soon. So I just don't want to see another instance where Bellator holds on to a guy just for name value, like they're doing a Fedor, like they did Chael Sonnen, you know, even Tito Ortiz. Like, it's like at some point you got to realize these young killers are up and coming. Give them the shot against the young killer, and then if he takes his head with him, then now he runs off with all Ryan Bader's fame. So I think that this changing of the guard kind of for Bellator is a good thing, not for nothing. It'll help build more stars within the promotion and generate more revenue. So going forward, we won't be looking at it as a B-tier league. I do think, I do think Moldavsky is the better striker, because he's more technical. Bader has the power. Don't get it twisted. If Bader connects, it's going to be an ugly night. And I do think he may clip him 1 or 2 rounds. That's why I'm willing to concede a couple rounds for Ryan. But I just think the overall pressure and the pace of this fight will take a toll on him. He's spoken about his body not reacting like he wants it to at 205. So in your very next fight, you want me to think it's going to react when you're 230 pounds and not cutting weight? I don't know. I don't see it personally, but I do think it's going to be a competitive fight. I don't think it's going to be one-sided at all.
You're right. You can't count out Ryan Bader because he is a heavyweight and he can hit hard. But the thing is, even if he wins this fight, how much longer can he keep this going? I don't see him going back down to 205. I think that ship has sailed. Who else are you really going to fight? I don't know. I don't know. With Ryan Bader, I think he's starting to come to the end of the road. I really think he does. Because do you really want to see Ryan Bader in a non-title fight? I don't think you do.
The only way I would want to see that is if he's giving another guy some shine. So if I don't want to see Bader against Fedor again. I don't want to see that rematch. Both those guys, super famous, I'm sure they got a good amount of money. If it was like Bader against a Moldavsky, an up-and-comer guy, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. But then again, with the price he commands, if Bader's on the card, it's likely going to be a main event. So now you got to dedicate a whole pay-per-view main event to him. And for it to be non-title, I'm with you. At this point, I don't know how much you're getting return on investment from him, as well as the revenue that the company brings in. But good thing we don't have to deal with the bookings and we can just watch the fights like fans. Quick shout out, Eagle FC is also doing an event tomorrow. So Khabib's US debut, Kevin Lee's on there against Diego Sanchez. I will pray for Diego. But we had some good title fight announcements for the UFC and just some overall fan favorite announcements. Starting with the first one, top of the bill, headlining UFC 274, rumored to be in Brazil. Some rumors it may not be, but as of now it is. Glover Teixeira against Yuri Prochazka. Mike, I know you're a Yuri guy. I'm a Yuri guy, but I'm also a Glover guy. This one's kind of tearing at my heart.
I like Yuri, but this time around, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Glover because Yuri is the new kid on the block, if you will, and he is. This will only be his 3rd or 4th fight in the UFC. Glover, I think when the chips are stacked against him and everyone just kind of writes him off as if he's just some old guy, he ends up winning a title. Or he ended up putting himself in a position to win a title, which a lot of people didn't even think he was going to be able to do. Nonetheless, win the light heavyweight strap. He did both of those things. I don't think it would be fair to count out Yuri, but in this scenario, 274, I think it's going to be a good card. And you brought it up. It probably won't be in Brazil. I don't know the exact reasons. I don't know why. COVID's probably a part of it. If I had to guess, maybe travel could be it too, where the U.S. is a little bit easier to get people in and out of than Brazil. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But Glover and Yuri Prochazka will probably be the co-main event. The main event, though, and I hope I'm not jumping the gun here, that will be great, too, if it's Oliveira and Gaethje. You put those two title fights, That's going to be one heck of a card, Dorian.
I agree, and definitely not jumping the gun. We can get right into that one too. We were talking a little bit before the show on what we think is going to happen, and we'll save those predictions for later down the line. But
Yeah.
man, that is finally the UFC's making the right title fight. At lightweight, a lot of people been going back and forth. When Dustin took the Conor trilogy, it's like, oh, Dustin's messing up the order. It was supposed to be him for a title, and now you got Oliveira and Chandler, who's only had one fight in the UFC. Now they're fighting for a title. Gaethje's just sitting on the sideline like, hey, I haven't gotten a fight booked. Gaethje has to wait for Chandler, and then he beats Chandler. And now he's saying, yo, if Conor gets the shot over me, we riot. There's nothing. So I'm happy that the UFC finally got the two right guys at 55 for the strap. I think this could have been made for the vacant belt as opposed to Oliveira Chandler, but I'm not mad seeing it a year later. And I don't know if it'll headline. I know the UFC usually goes by weight classes if they're both title fights, but whoever's at the top of the bill is more than deserving. I think Oliveira probably has the most. Oliveira Gaethje probably have the most star power on the card.
Yeah, Dorian, that should be the main event because
I agree.
No offense to Glover Teixeira or Yuri Prohaska, are they really going to sell? Glover, yes, he did a pay-per-view for 267, but as long as you had ESPN Plus, you had access to watch the fight.
It was a free one.
I don't see Glover being a big sell. The only time Glover main evented a pay-per-view was when he fought John Jones. And even then, I don't think that fight sold all that well either. I don't know. I think if you're the UFC, you have to go Oliveira because this will be his third pay-per-view headliner. And then Gaethje has done a bunch of them too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to put the 55ers at the top of the bill. We'll see how Dana feels about that. And I think Yuri does have the opportunity to be a very, very, very good fighter. I just don't know what makes him great. I know his striking and his unorthodox, he'll walk you down, but I don't know what makes him great. We know what makes Glover great. His grit, his grappling, he'll never give up. He's always shooting for that takedown. If Yuri's able to withstand that, then he'll have a good shot. And same for Gaethje. If Gaethje can keep Oliveira off his back, then he'll have a good shot. We had some other fights that were announced, obviously non-title fights, but Dan Hooker, Arnold Allen, I think that's a great matchup at 45. Dan Hooker's return back to 45. Arnold Allen, I think, is on a 9 or 10 fight win streak. And then Vicente Luque and Bilal Muhammad are also matched up. Seems like it's going to be a main event on a fight night. Bilal's not getting Hamzat, and Luque is not getting Nate Diaz. So we got two fish out of the water at 170. We know that. Any thoughts on those two?
I would say just let's start with the last one first. Actually, no. We'll begin with Hooker. That one interests me because I'm interested to see how Dan Hooker does in his return to 145 pounds. I think it is a good move on his part because it seems like he's doing it in a healthy manner. He's not draining because right now it seems like 145 is his walk-around weight. He's making that when he's not even in camp. He's just testing it out kind of for fun. Or actually, the Nasrat fight, was that at 145 or was that 55?
That was 55.
Okay. I got my dates confused there then. So yeah, so he's never fought as a 45 recently, like within the past year. He hasn't done that. So I think that will be an interesting test. It's going to be tough though, going against Arnold Allen, fought most recently in April, had a nice win in that outing. It's going to be a competitive fight. This is Dan Hooker's last stand at a championship. A part of me kind of thought Dan Hooker would make the move up to 170, but Dan Hooker is one of those tweeners. Like if there was a 165 division, I think that would be perfect for him because he's long, but he's lean. 145 though, he found a way to change up his diet, his regimen, training, all those kind of things. And it worked for him. So God bless him. If he can find a way to be successful at 45, even more so than he was at 55, hats off to Dan Hooker.
Yeah, and not for nothing. I think if you can stop Arnold Allen, who is probably the hottest surging prospect
Yeah.
now that Giga's lost at 45, you almost put yourself in immediate title contention at 45 because 45 is struggling for contenders. Obviously we have Max and the Korean Zombies challenging, but after that, it's like Ortega, he just lost, Yair, he just lost. So there's some, and Zabit, we don't know if he's ever coming back. We don't know what's going on with him. But yeah, we have a lot of opening at 45. And like you said, this is probably his last stand at a title run. So if he gets that win, then hey, he's on the right path to a title for sure. And then Vicente Luque, Bilal Muhammad. I thought this is an interesting matchup, given that Luque has knocked Bilal out in the past, and Bilal. Okay, he 30-25 Wonder Boy, which is an impressive performance. But aside from that, Bilal Muhammad hasn't been super duper impressive enough to the point where we would give him a rematch. But I guess they're doing it based off of the Wonder Boy fight and how bad Luque looked against Wonder Boy compared to Bilal. I didn't really get the matchup for this, but the fight itself, I'm a fan of. Anytime Luque fights, I'm a fan. I'm going to tune in. But I just didn't see why they would make that matchup.
I think I know why, and partly it's because he looks so good against Wonder Boy, but I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Right around a year ago, the best thing that could have happened to Bilal Muhammad, as crazy as this may sound, was getting poked in the eye by Leon Edwards, because he didn't lose that fight to Edwards. And the UFC never bothered to rebook it because there was really no point. At that point, it was pretty much a no contest in terms of the fight itself and the matchmaking process. All right, we're going to move on. That was the best thing that could have happened to Bilal Muhammad at that point. You can argue whether or not he's deserving of a title fight in the future. That's an argument for another day. But I do think his win over Diego Lima, February of last year, and then getting poked in the eye, in a weird way, it helped him because then it allowed him to fight Damian Maia at 263. That helped him out. That helped his stock. And then obviously the win over Wonder Boy. That's, I think, why he's in this position to fight Luque. And if you're Luque, you already beat him. And in many people's eyes, you are the better fighter. So I will say, though, if we're comparing this time around to the last time they fought, I think Bilal Muhammad is a much more improved fighter.
Yeah, and I'd hope so. They fought back, I see here, November 12th of 2016.
205.
On 205. Oh, wow. So, of course, they're both evolved fighters. They're both, I would say Luque's fight IQ is probably a lot higher, and Bilal overall has just gotten a lot better. He was very raw when he came in. So, I understand it, but for me, I just think Luque has separated himself at the top of 170. But when you look at 170, everyone's booked for the most part. And I think Sean Brady is, I don't know if he needs surgery or something, or he's injured, some type of injury. So aside from him, Colby, Jorge off the card are booked. Leon's about to fight Usman, booked. Wonder Boy just lost, so he's kind of out the shuffle. So at 170, they're kind of bare for names. And if Luque isn't going to get the Nate Diaz fight, I think this is probably his second best. If he beats Bilal a second time, he puts himself. Honestly, this is probably a number one contenders fight. If we're being blunt, this is a number one contenders fight. Given at 170, unless Chimaev comes and gets matched up against someone and beats them and somehow jumps them. But I think this is likely a number one contenders fight.
Chimaev, I think, would have to beat Burns. But if you're Burns and you beat Chimaev, you have a pretty good case to make, too, that, hey, let me get another crack at the title. So you got a shot. Or if you're Luque, you could say, hey, Burns, you were Kamaru's teammate who lost. I have never fought Kamaru. I've never lost. Let me get a crack at it. So I think you could see those two be kind of in competition without fighting each other.
Certainly. And I mean, at the end of the day, 170 is going to play out how it plays out. Usman has been the most active champion, yet somehow everyone else at 170 hasn't been active. Made a big stink about it when Colby and Leon were trying to get booked, and they were both holding out for a title shot. So I'm just glad we're done with that, man.
Yep.
But last but certainly not least, we had UFC 270 this past weekend. Headline: Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, co-main Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno trilogy fight. Mike, what were your overall thoughts about the card itself, and then obviously the two fights?
Heading in, looking at the fight or the card on paper, I wasn't impressed heading into it, especially with a lot of the fights that pulled out either because of COVID reasons or injuries, what have you. Ilia Topuria was supposed to fight. He didn't. I was a little disappointed. I thought the fight, or the card rather, was underwhelming heading into it. Overall, though, I was impressed. I feel like I got my money's worth from the pay-per-view. The undercard was great as well, both prelims, because the early prelims just had 2 fights on them. And then you look at the prelims themselves, they were terrific, I would say. I think they were very, very good. Overall, it was a solid card. You know, it wasn't anything that I think blew your hair back. Michelle Pahea probably wouldn't be fighting the third to last fight on too many pay-per-view cards. I think that just goes to show how weak it was. But for what it was entertaining. Said Nurmagomedov, a guy I wrote about, which you can check out on twsn.net. Man, he's looking like an upstart in the 135-pound division. He's looking like he's going to be a problem. No relation to Khabib, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't know how he didn't win performance of the night.
Yeah, he should have.
47-second ninja choke real quick. That was very impressive. Ooh. Excuse me here. But what were your thoughts on the co-main event? Let's dive straight into that.
I would say so. The co-main event, I could see a case for someone who thought that Brandon Moreno won. I could see the case. Although I had Figueiredo winning. I thought Figueiredo did enough to win and did enough to get his title back. There were questions surrounding Figueiredo's ability to be disciplined, Figueiredo's ability to make weight. He did a lot of those things that night, and it showed. He stepped up. I think he led the dance. That was something I was looking forward to. But that fight, I'm going to say it now, has a case to be made for a Fight of the Year candidate. Do I think it will be Fight of the Year? No. Because the fight that succeeded it also has a case for it too, which is crazy. But I think you got your money's worth off that fight alone. It was entertaining. Both guys, I wouldn't say were hurt, but they were eating shots. And Figueiredo, he had control, and ultimately he deserved to win.
I agree with you. Watching the fight, I think I scored it. Watching it live, I believe I scored it 4-1 for Figgy. And then I rewatched it back, and I switched up the first round. I thought Moreno won that. But I don't know how anybody could see Moreno winning. This reminded me eerily similar of the Max Holloway Dustin Poirier fight, where Max landed more volume, but Poirier was landing the bigger shots, the harder shots. And it's hard to tell if a guy's hurt. Like you said, you don't think any of them are really hurt. But what we do know is Figueiredo dropped the champion multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Same round, different rounds, end of the round. If it's a close round and you get dropped at the end of the round, on my cards, you lost that round. And I know this isn't boxing. It's not a 10-8. I don't think any rounds were 10-8 rounds. But getting dropped a couple times, you just can't win those rounds. I've seen people asking for, a fourth fight. Can I be the first person to say nobody wants let me not say that. Let me rephrase myself. There should not be a fourth fight. I know that they're 1-1-1. I know that this is the two biggest stars at flyweight, But let's be realistic. How long are we going to hold up the flyweight division with these two fighting each other? You have Pantoja, who's sitting awaiting a title shot. He's probably not going to get it. And he's already beaten Moreno, not once, but twice. Let him get in there with Figgy. And then the winner of Askar Askarov and Kai Kara France in a couple months, or actually next month, I believe. What about them? Are we just going to have them sit around and wait until we can get into Mexico and do Brandon Moreno and Figgy and 4 in Mexico? And like, how? I just don't see why we would book this for a fourth time right now. I'm not saying later down the line, but right now, I just don't want to see it.
You're speaking from a purist standpoint, which I understand and I get. But if you're the UFC, there is money to be made, probably more so than if you were to have the winner of Kai Kara France, Askar Askarov, Pantoja, Royval, one of those guys stepping in that spot. Let's face it, Dorian. Henry Cejudo, Demetrius Johnson, Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. Those 4 names saved the flyweight division. You can thank those 4 names for the flyweight division still being around. The flyweight division has always had stellar guys. John Dodson. I mean, the list goes. I could sit here for 10 minutes. Joseph Benavidez. You have guys that are terrific, but they're not sellers. People don't really care about the 125-pound division outside of the champion. Whoever it is, they don't really care. But the casual fans and even diehard fans of MMA, they care about Figueiredo and Moreno, that storyline. I think we're going to get a 4th fight. I don't know if it's going to be in Mexico. I think if you're Figueiredo, that's not smart. Why would you go?
He said he wants it in Mexico.
That's not smart. That would be stupid. That would not be smart if he did that. But I think both of these guys know there is money to be made, more so than if Alex Pantoja would to fight. Because let's be honest. Look when Davison Figueiredo fought Alex Perez. No one really cared. I'm talking about the lead up, by the way. I'm not even talking about the result. And everyone's like, nah. Because if you remember, Perez filled in for Cody Garbrandt.
Yeah.
So everyone was like, oh, is Cody going to be there? And Cody wasn't. Perez was there. No one really cared. I'm being honest with you, Dorian. If Pantoja goes there, as great as Pantoja is, no one's going to care. Askar Askarov, great fighter. No one's really going to care. Or even Kai Kara France, compared to Moreno and Figgy. So I get where you're coming from, but the other side of the equation, I think, is going to show that the bottom line means a lot more.
And I totally understand that. But at what point do we have them stop fighting? Because, okay, the first fight happens, totally deserving of a rematch. Majority draw, the nut shot, and got the point taken away from Figgy. Other than that, he won the fight very, very, very clearly. Even on one judge's card, he won, which is why it was a majority draw and not an overall draw.
Yep.
So can we just say Figgy won the first one? I think that's fair. Second fight, 100% deserving of the rematch because it's a draw. Greatest flyweight fight ever. Not even title fight, just greatest flyweight fight ever.
Yeah.
Okay, throw him in there, rematch. Moreno chokes him out in 2 rounds. Oh, wow. Now we have a trilogy. Now we can make something of it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the third fight right away. And that's my point. Not saying I don't want to see them fight the 4th time, but right away, we've now booked them fight 1, fight 2, and fight 3 without them having any, I don't want to say tune-up fights, but any other opponents. They've strictly been focused on each other for the last, year and a half? And now you're going to tell them to go wait another 2-3 months and then get back in training camp to fight the same guy? We just saw that. How many more times can you fool us and put on, and I'm not saying the fights weren't great. I do think that was easily the fight of the night, easily the most entertaining fight of the night. And I'm not I don't want to make it sound as if I don't want to see them two square off again. Because at the end of the day, it is 1-1-1. The next one will be the last one.
Yeah.
Whoever the better fighter is for whatever reason. But right away, we've never. Okay, so we've had plenty of trilogies in the UFC. None of them have ever been back to back to back. Okay, even the ones that were back to back, like Dustin and Conor, the second and third fight. No, why do we want to see the third fight? Conor just got knocked out. Moreno just choked him out. Why did we need to see the third fight? Figgy should have fought someone else. Should have fought a Pantoja to get his belt back, and then we see him fight. But I don't call it a hot take. Call it what you want. I don't want to see this for a fourth time, and I agree with you. Asking for it in Mexico, I think what that'll do is drive the pay-per-view buys up, simply because the Mexican population will be a lot more invested if the event's actually in Mexico. Mm-hmm. So Figgy doing that is probably a business thing more so than him actually wanting to fight in Mexico. But I don't want to see it right now. We just saw it. We just saw it in January. We just saw it in June? And then I don't remember the month of the last time that they fought.
December was December 2020. December 2020 was the first time. June was the second time of 2021, and then obviously last Saturday.
Yeah, so are we every 6 months we're just gonna see them fight? And at the end of the day, I understand. And last point I'll make on this before we get to the title fight, you said it best. Those four guys saved the flyweight division. Mighty Mouse probably ruined the flyweight division. How bad he was beating guys. Cejudo comes along, kind of makes it interesting. The biggest name in flyweight history, being an Olympic champion and all that. Then you get Figueiredo, who the villain, if you will say, God of War. And then Moreno, the super nice guy, can fight his ass off, Mexican, strong, fighting spirit. And it's like, okay, wow, these have big names. But if we don't ever give other guys a chance at the title, how can we build up an Askarov? How can we build up a Pantoja? Can we get Figgy and Pantoja in Brazil? Throw that on the card. You're telling me that won't make waves? I don't know. But I guess my opinion, maybe it doesn't matter. But the pay-per-view buys returned. I think it sold approximately 210,000 is the number I've seen. So when you got that's not good. So
can I make a remark about that?
Go ahead.
Dana White's seeing how hard it is to sell pay-per-views now, because who was he just criticizing?
Jake Paul.
Right? So now he's seeing, in this current day and age, it ain't that easy to sell a ton of pay-per-view buys, especially when you kind of leverage the house against Francis Ngannou. And a lot of Greg Hardy was taken off the card. Now, I'm not saying Greg Hardy's a pay-per-view star. He's not.
These are just fan favorites were taken off of the card. A lot of them.
You took a lot of guys who a lot of people are like, all right, I'll fork over $80 to go see it. When a lot of people are like, I don't really know who Cyril Gane is. Francis Ngannou, he's a knockout artist, but he's on his way out. So Dana, I think, is getting his medicine from Jake Paul right now. And I even think Jake Paul is now an investor in the UFC's parent company. So that whole debacle, and I'm not trying to get into it, but I'm just saying 210, although it's not awful, but the UFC is used to doing a whole lot better. And now they're seeing how hard it is nowadays.
And I know you don't want to get into it. We don't have to, but I think Jake Paul is dropping a diss track towards Dana tomorrow.
I'm good.
I'm not. I want to hear it, but let's move on to the main event.
I'm good.
So, great segue by you. It's not easy to sell pay-per-views, especially when your original co-main was Derek Brunson, Jared Cannonier. You move that off the card to put it with the Izzy card. Okay. Like you said, Greg Hardy, fan favorite, off the card. Evilov pulls out. Okay, a little less fanfare. But now we got Jourdain stepping in. Okay, Ilia Topuria is off the card. Okay, a little less fanfare. And you actually moved the flyweight title fight from 269 to this card, because it was just being so underwhelming on paper. So you go in and you're trying to tell a guy like Francis Ngannou, we're not going to pay you as much money as you'll get for fighting Tyson Fury because you're not the star Conor McGregor is. But look at the card you're putting him on. And then when he goes out and does the unthinkable. Now let's get into the fight. Forget all the business stuff.
Okay.
We're not a business pod. Who needs that? Francis Ngannou beat Ciryl Gane by decision. I'm going to repeat for those in the back. Francis Ngannou wrestled Ciryl Gane to a unanimous decision victory. Real quick, I don't know if you saw the talks, but did you have Gane winning that fight? I seen a lot of people saying this is a robbery.
Okay. The only person that robbed that fight was Ciryl Gane. He robbed himself. How are you up 2-0? And then, I'm sorry, and you know how much I love Ciryl Gane. I still ride for him, right? I'm ride or die when it comes to my fighters and who I support. I'm going to be honest, Dorian. I would have preferred Ciryl Gane getting knocked out. Here's why. Because if Francis is going to beat you, it is expected that he's going to land a shot that you can't handle. Who in their right mind would have thought Francis would be down 2-0, the change of the guard would be taking place, and then you allow Francis not to knock you out and win the fight. You allow him to slam you several times, take you down, defend your takedowns, outwork you on the ground.
That was a crazy slam, by the way.
You could hear it too. Oh, that crunch. That was rough. And then DC said Francis was doing, I think, thug jitsu. I don't know if you picked that up, but like Francis, man, you gotta give it to him. And that's why, as a Ciryl Gane supporter, which I am, again, I would rather have seen him just get flatlined by Francis, because it was inexcusable for him to give up that 5th round. It is 2-2. And at that point, by the way, he had the momentum. I know it didn't seem like it because he just gave up 2 rounds, but towards the end of the 4th round, he was starting to come on and come alive. He had the momentum, but he just got lazy on the ground and allowed Francis to pass when he tried to do a lazy leg lock. I don't know. Ciryl seriously has to work on his ground game. If not, he will get exposed by others.
Great point. And on the fight, I agree 100% with you. Being up 2-0 against Francis is exactly where his coach told him he would be. All camp. Hey, first round, you're not going to get touched. Second round, you're going to do your thing. We're going to be up 2-0, and then you'll be able to go to work. Francis is going to be a little tired. You'll be able to go to work. Ciryl Gane sat down at the end of the 2nd round. Said, I'm up 2-0. Okay. But the guard started to flip. Mm-hmm. Momentum flipped with that slam. Caught a kick, picked him up, dunked him. Boom. I said, wow. When he got that first one, I didn't think much of it. I'm like, okay, wow, great slam. Francis controlled him on the top. Not very much ground and pound, because anytime he would lift up, Ciryl would just move, and it was a lot of top control, not a lot of strikes. I was like, wow, okay. Going into the 4th round, Eric Nixick said it. Yo, go across the cage, take him down. And Francis looked and said, I saw me against Stipe the first time when I looked across the octagon and saw him after that 3rd round. And he said that in an interview. He was like, I saw a broken man. I knew right there at the end of the 3rd I was going to win the fight. And when I thought about it, I'm like, man, it's big talk from him being down 2-1 at the time. But then he goes out and does the exact same thing in the 4th round. Takedown, top control, a little bit of ground and pound here and there. And then, I don't know if you heard it, Fernand Lopez actually went in the corner at the end of the 4th round and told Ciryl, you might be down 3-1.
Yeah.
So go, and I think that's why Ciryl went for the leg lock.
Yeah.
So But like you said, a lazy attempt. I think both guys were not, well, let me not say both. Francis won it. Cyril wasn't expecting to grapple. So when you start grappling, I think his cardio dropped significantly. I think he was gassed in the 4th and 5th round, which is crazy to say, given Cyril Gane's been the 5-round distance multiple times in his career. So yeah, it just looked like he was lost on the ground. John Jones tweeted it and was like, yo, this was a terrible fight. I'm smoking both of these guys. And let's be real. Now, granted, Francis had a knee issue. He couldn't really plant, couldn't strike like he wanted to. So I don't want to indict Francis on this. I think he is the rightful heavyweight champ. But I don't think either of these guys are ready for what John Jones is going to bring.
See, John Jones is complex because he always has to open his mouth when the light isn't on him and it's on other people. I kind of just wish he would just shut up and just stay in the shadows. The last thing he needs to do right now is talk about fighting. I think he's got other things to worry about. But if and when he is to come back, Cyril, I think he would beat Cyril. I'm going to admit that. I think he would beat Cyril Gane. Francis, though, Dom Reyes almost put you out. And Yuri Prohaska, Jan Blachowicz, Rakic, you saw what was coming in the 205 division, so you got out of there. What do you think you're going to get against Francis? I mean,
I can't let you do that. I can't.
So you don't think Francis can hurt him?
No, not that point. Don't say he saw Yuri, Jan, and Rakic and left the division.
All right. Why did he leave then?
He was moving up to heavyweight.
Why?
And because he's dominated the light heavyweight division for his entire career, and there wasn't much left for him. And to fully dedicate your body to heavyweight, ask Ryan Bader. You shouldn't be bouncing back between 205 and heavyweight. If you're going to fully dedicate yourself to something, especially moving up 65 pounds,
okay,
you got to take that time. So he vacated his belt and say, yo, you guys can play with that little fake belt. You know, Izzy, if you want it, go get it here. You're never going to fight me anyway. Let me move up and fight heavyweight. He's putting on size. He's taking a lot of time. I know he's taking a lot of time. Okay. But I think he's close. It's close. He's with Cejudo. He's with Figueiredo. I think I may be wrong, but I think I saw someone else is about to go down there, Yuri, and work on his wrestling with John Jones for the Glover fight. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me. Wasn't a very credible site that I was reading it on. But I'm not going to let you say he ran away from the 205.
No. Here's why he did. All right, because I have the dates, too, to back this up. February 8th, 2020, John Jones reclaimed his title against Dominic Reyes. February 8th. A week later, in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Jan and Corey.
And who was there? John was there.
The infamous Jan and John doing this.
I know you, and the retort will probably be, oh, it was in Albuquerque, that's why he went. There's a reason John was sitting cage side. John was scouting. John was seeing, all right, who is going to come here next? John saw what Yuri just did to Corey Anderson and said, you know what? Jan's not as big of a name, so I'll give you that. The motivation wasn't there to potentially get slept. But John saw what was coming behind him. And again, as a businessman for John, I understand from a business standpoint saying the juice is not worth the squeeze here. I can get knocked out and I'm not making any more money than I was fighting Dom Reyes in arguably the closest fight of my career. But for heavyweight, the only way I don't think he finishes Francis. Especially not this Francis.
Yeah. It's hard to tell because we'd be going off of John's career at 205 to kind of do this, but I feel like John at heavyweight is going to be very Cyril-like because I already felt like he was like that light on his feet, in and out, never really in the pocket trading because he's used to fighting, Dominic Reyes, Thiago Santos, Alexander Gustafsson, like big one punch, even DC, like OSP, like he fights heavy hitters. So he's never really in the pocket trading. I don't think that'll be anything new if he matches up with Francis. But one thing I do want to touch on that's very interesting, Francis needs knee surgery.
MCL and ACL.
MCL and ACL. We see how long TJ Dillashaw's recovery has taken. He fought Corey in, what was that, July 27th, I want to say. I remember that poster. That was one of the best fight night posters I've ever seen. So I think it was either July 27th or 17th. TJ's still not back to full contact training. So this may be the actual time that John needed to just, hey, let me step up, interim title fight, me and Stipe. Who would say no to that? Man. I think if John gets paid the right amount, he can go win the interim belt and wait for Francis. Now he fights Francis. Give him one fight at heavyweight. I think he'll be ready for Francis, man.
I think John beats Stipe because I hate to say this. The loss to Cormier the first time around took a lot out of Stipe. That's, I think, when we started to see the beginning of the end with Stipe, because from that point, he only fought once a year. It was like every summer. Yeah, every summer he would fight DC and do nothing else. And then you go from doing that once a year to then fighting the hungriest version of Francis Ngannou that we have ever seen. And I just believe that took a lot out of him. Now you're going to go fight John Jones, who's a better wrestler than you are, a better striker than you are. And oh, by the way, John Jones actually used to fight at heavyweight when he was like 21 or 22. John Jones has fought in the heavyweight division. It's been a long time, well over a decade, but you're dealing with a heavier version of John Jones. So I don't see how Stipe gets a win after that.
And not for nothing, Stipe isn't the biggest heavyweight.
No.
So John can get a taste of that heavyweight strength without getting the full brunt Francis cutting to make 265 type of strength.
To that point, Dorian, Stipe's actually lost weight.
Yeah.
That's not what you want to do against John.
I think he was 238 or 240-ish for his last Francis fight.
He was too skinny.
Yeah. Physically, like visibly, you can see him like, wow, he's a lot thinner than you would want to be fighting the biggest guy in the division. But, I mean, yeah, I think moral of the story, Francis Ngannou wins this battle with the UFC that he's having because not only did he retain his belt, now I need surgery. Now I'm going to wait. And it's getting closer to that December date. And he said, as soon as that calendar hits 2023, I am a free agent, whether I have this belt or not. He said he's probably not going to fight again in 2022, even after his surgery. And he kind of said it with a sarcastic tone. He's like, hey, I've only been fighting once a year for the past couple of years anyway. What's the difference? Mm-hmm. So I think Francis has all the and we talked about it last week. Francis has all the leverage in the world now. He beat Gane in a way no one really thought he would or could.
Right.
And he beat Gane in the way that Gane was supposed to beat him, with wrestling and top control. So hats off to Francis, hats off to Davison, and the UFC, actually, because I think the UFC wins. I think if he would have went out and starched Ciryl Gane, Tyson Fury is looking like, all right, let's make this fight sooner than later while everybody's hot. But now Tyson Fury is probably going to defend his belts now that Francis needs surgery. Francis is going to take the surgery, coming back, may not defend his heavyweight belt, may just be a free agent. So I think actually everybody wins. So, ta-da!
Well, we actually have a little bit of time left. I don't know if you saw this. Tyson Fury was supposed to fight Alexander Usyk if Anthony Joshua and Dillian White accepted step-aside money from, it was either Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi, one of the two places. They had a site fee of $155 million dollars, and out of that money, they would give step-aside money to Wright and Joshua. Both of them on the 11th hour balked, and that's why right now we're not going to get Fury Usyk, which I'm kind of disappointed in, because who really wants to see Fury fight Wright? That I don't think is going to be a close fight. And we talked about it. Usyk Joshua too. I could live without it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I think this one fight was huge for a lot of different people in a lot of different sports. Boxing, it's huge for the heavyweight division. It's obviously huge for John. It's huge for Stipe, because Stipe wants the trilogy. Like, don't get it twisted. Stipe wants to get his lick back on Francis.
He's not, but yeah.
Yeah, he's right.
Francis would kill him.
Cyril probably wants to get back in there sooner than later. I think if John doesn't fight Stipe, Cyril is the only matchup that Stipe would probably even accept at this point. And I think now the UFC will be forced to make another interim title, because they made the first one only 3 months after he won. And now you're going to have to kind of just sit around and wait for his surgery, wait for him to recover. Hopefully rehab goes well and there's no setbacks. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be an interim title, may even be defended. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We have a lot of moving parts with this. It's not over just because the fight's over. I think Dana White did come out and say, last thing, he didn't sit out there for the main event, and he had some stuff going on in the back. That's why he didn't put the belt on Francis. I don't buy it personally. I don't see a reason why you would leave for the main event to go handle something in the back. When you're the president of the UFC, you should have people in the back already handling it. But he say, she say, I won't get into it. If you have a comment on it.
It's not a good look. Whether or not Dana did it purposely, I think the optics of it are bad, because the automatic assumption is, oh, you're just being petty. You don't want to wrap it around Francis's waist, which, to be honest, I don't think is the case. The reason being, if you remember last week, Dana shook Francis's hands during the weigh-ins and during the press conferences. Like, he was cool with Francis. It didn't seem like there was a visible strife there. But then it came out that Francis was being threatened by the UFC to get sued if he talked to Jake Paul. So there was just a lot going on. However, I do know, though, in the past, Dana has had to go to the back of the arena to deal with certain things. So it's a bad look. Optics are not great, but I don't think Dana did it purposely.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll never know.
We'll never know, yeah.
Also not showing for the press conference, I think that's what it was. That's what did it for me. Like, if you don't put the belt on him, okay, I had to handle something in the back. Okay, cool. But after the fight, because I'm assuming you sat in the back and watched the fight, you didn't miss the main event of the first pay-per-view of your company's year. So I know he didn't miss the fight.
Right.
After that, why do you not go talk to the media? So I don't know. It looks weird, but this just goes to show, like you said, threatened to be sued on the way to the fight. UFC's playing mind games. Cyril Gane's coach is playing mind games. Everybody but Cyril really was playing mind games against Francis, and, good guys win. The good guy won at the end of the day. And I don't want to say Cyril's a bad guy, because he's not, and I don't want to shade him at all, but the good guy won in this scenario. So glad to see Francis is a winner, and hopefully his surgery goes well whenever he has it. If he puts it off for a little longer, like Mike Thomas in the NFL, I know we're kind of swapping sports, but Mike Thomas is like, no Drew Brees. I think I'll get surgery 2 weeks before the season starts. Like, yeah, no, I'm not playing with you guys trying to throw Taysom Hill at quarterback for what?
Jameis Winston.
Or yeah, Jameis. Like, nah, man, I'm cool. I played him twice a year every year. I know what Jameis does. I'm just gonna have surgery. You guys will pay me to rehab. So obviously it's different in fighting, but Francis may get some endorsement money to rehab. So all the best to him, man. And make sure you guys tune in next week for Strikes Submissions. We'll have another good show for you. We'll have some interesting talk for the next week's main event. Sean Strickland, Jack Hermanson. I have a lot to say about that. I'm sure you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And just be on the lookout. Peace. Peace.
Get up, get up.